My name is Linda Carver, and I've worked night shift trauma for 11 years. I've seen gunshots, rollovers, heartbreak delivered in an ambulance bay at 3 in the morning, but I have never, ever seen a mother recognize her lost daughter by reading a name on a hospital badge, and I have never heard an ICU room go that quiet, that fast, from a single sentence. Here's what I need you to hold in your mind while you listen. By the end of this story, one family will learn the truth they avoided for 5 years, because the only person who could save their favorite child was the child they erased. And there's one more thing. In my pocket that morning, I had a screenshot. One screenshot that would make the last lie collapse. I didn't know it when I took it. I just knew. Something felt wrong. It started on a Thursday night, January. The kind of Connecticut cold that makes the dark feel heavier. At 3:07 a.m., our trauma pager went off. Level 1 trauma, MVC, single female, 35, blunt abdominal trauma, hemodynamically unstable, ETA 8 minutes. When that tone hits, you don't think, you move. I pulled gloves. I checked suction. I called blood bank. I yelled for warm fluids. I told respiratory to be ready. I cleared Bay 2. And then I saw who was on the incoming chart. Patient name, Chloe Ellison. Date of birth, the 14th of March, 1990. Emergency contact, Greg Ellison. Father. I stared at the screen long enough that my charge nurse brain had to kick my heart back into my chest, because our chief of trauma surgery was already walking in, hair tucked, scrubs on, calm like she'd been carved out of steel. Dr. Maya Ellison. Same last name. People think hospitals are loud. Sometimes they are. But right before an ambulance hits the bay, there's this thin moment of stillness. Like the whole building takes a breath. Dr. Ellison took the iPad from my hands. Her eyes flicked once. Just once. And something in her face changed. Not panic. Not fear. Recognition. Then she set the iPad down like it was hot. "I'm fine," she said. But she didn't say it to me. She said it to herself. And then she did what I've always respected about her. She went straight to procedure. "I have a conflict of interest," she said, already moving. "Page Dr. Patel. Document it. If my judgment slips, he takes lead. No drama, no explanation, just the oath first. Everything else later." That was my first clue this wasn't some simple family feud. This was something older. Something that had already been decided in her bones. The ambulance doors cracked open, and the stretcher came in fast. Chloe was strapped down, oxygen mask fogging, blood on her shirt, her abdomen already swelling in that way that makes my stomach drop, because you can't see the bleed, but the body is screaming it's happening. The paramedic rattled off numbers. Pressure falling, heart rate climbing, 2 large-bore IVs wide open, and right behind that stretcher came her parents. Her mother stumbled in wearing a bathrobe, slippers on the wrong feet, hair thin like she'd been pulled awake by a nightmare. Her father wore flannel and jeans like he dressed in the dark. His face looked like old paper. "That's my daughter," he yelled, grabbing at my arm like my skin could turn into a miracle. "Where are they taking her? Get me the doctor in charge. I've been yelled at by panicked families before. That wasn't new. What was new was what he said next. The chief. Get me the chief now." He said it like the chief belonged to him, like the chief was supposed to serve his family. I held my hands up, steady. "Sir, family needs to wait in the surgical waiting area. The trauma team is here. The chief is handling this personally. You'll be updated." He kept turning his head, scanning windows, trying to catch a glimpse of the person he thought would save his daughter. And as he passed the glass partition, his eyes landed on our chief. Dr. Maya Ellison. Gowned, gloved, focused. He didn't recognize her. Not then. Not yet. In the scrub room, I watched Dr. Ellison alone for a moment, through the cracked door. She turned the water on, hot, and held her hands under it like she needed the burn to stay present. She looked at herself in the stainless steel mirror. distorted, warped, and I saw something flash across her face that I had never seen in an attending. Grief. Not the loud kind, the controlled kind. The kind you keep in a sealed jar because you can't afford to spill it in an OR. She breathed in once, slow. Then she walked into the operating room like the past had no right to touch her hands. The surgery lasted 3 hours and 40 minutes. Ruptured spleen. Out it came. Grade 3 liver laceration, repaired with sutures that looked like embroidery when the blood finally cleared. 2 mesenteric vessels bleeding like open mouths. Clamped, cauterized, controlled. Dr. Ellison barely spoke. Not because she was cold, because she was locked in. Suction, clamp, lap pad, retract. Her hands did what hands do when a person has built a life out of precision. At 6:48 a.m., the last stitch went in. Vitals stabilized. Output clear. Chloe was alive. Dr. Patel pulled his mask down and said quietly, "That was flawless." Then he asked, softer, "You want me to talk to the family?" And Dr. Ellison said something I won't forget. "No, this one's mine." The waiting room at 7 in the morning has a fluorescent hush, a TV murmuring weather to no one. 2 other families sitting far apart like grief needs personal space. And in the center row were Chloe's parents. Rigid, sleepless, terrified. Dr. Ellison walked in wearing surgical scrubs, mask down at her neck, hair pulled back. Her badge hung at chest level. Dr. Maya Ellison, MD, FACS. Chief of Trauma Surgery. The father stood first. Reflex. Control. "Doctor," he said, stepping forward. "How is she? Is Chloe?" Then his eyes dropped. To the badge. Back to the face. Back to the badge again. I watched recognition move through him like a tremor, starting in his hands, climbing to his jaw. His wife looked up half a second later. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Her right hand clamped onto his forearm so hard it made his flannel wrinkle. 5 seconds of silence. 5 seconds that held 5 years. Dr. Ellison spoke first. Calm. Clinical. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellison. I'm Dr. Ellison, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Your daughter sustained a ruptured spleen and a grade 3 liver laceration. Surgery was successful. She's stable in the ICU. You can see her in approximately 1 hour. Mr. and Mrs., not Mom and Dad." That choice was a scalpel. The mother stepped toward her like a dam broke. "Maya. Oh my God. Oh my God, Maya." Dr. Ellison stepped back. Half a step. Polite. Unmistakable. The mother froze with her arms in the air like she'd tried to hug a ghost. The father's voice came out like gravel. "You're a doctor." "I am." "The chief." "I am." He blinked hard, trying to force the world to match what he believed. "But Chloe said you... What exactly?" Dr. Ellison asked, still calm. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and the mother whispered, shaking, "We thought you dropped out." Dr. Ellison didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "She told you I dropped out," she said. "That I had a boyfriend with a drug problem. That I was homeless. That I refused to contact you." She paused, just long enough to let reality land. None of it was true. Not a single word. Behind me, I saw my coworker press her hand to her mouth. One of the residents looked away, jaw tight, like he didn't want to witness something sacred, because that's what it felt like. Not gossip, not drama. A truth, finally arriving. The father tried to redirect. Old instinct. "This isn't the time or place," he said. "Your sister is in the ICU." "I know," Dr. Ellison said. "I just spent 3 hours and 40 minutes making sure she survives. So yes, I'm aware of where she is." He had nothing. The silence did what arguments never could. Then, because hospitals love bad timing, I walked in with my clipboard and said the thing that detonated the second bomb. "Dr. Ellison." The board chair reviewed the overnight trauma log. "The Physician of the Year committee asked me to pass along their congratulations on tonight's outcome. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." The mother's head snapped up. Mascara gone. Face swollen. "Physician of the Year?" she whispered. like the words didn't belong to her child. "It's internal," Dr. Ellison said flat. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing in that room. It was proof. Public proof. And proof is louder than a lie. Dr. Ellison excused herself to check post-op vitals, and as she walked out, spine straight, measured steps, she didn't look back. But I heard the mother's voice behind her. Small. Ruined. "Greg, what have we done?" And the father, for the first time since he walked in, said nothing. 4 hours later, ICU room 6, monitors beeping, morning light angling through blinds, that sterile calm that feels like it's holding its breath. I went in to do standard checks, but Dr. Ellison was already there. She always is. She doesn't skip the part where the body becomes a person again. Chloe's eyes were open, glassy, anesthesia hangover. She blinked at the ceiling, blinked at the IV pole, then her gaze tracked to Dr. Ellison. She squinted. "Read the badge." Read it again, and the color drained out of her face like I'd just told her a diagnosis. "Maya," she rasped. "Good morning, Chloe," Dr. Ellison said. "I'm your attending surgeon. You sustained a ruptured spleen and a grade 3 liver laceration. Surgery went well. You're going to make a full recovery." Chloe swallowed hard. "You're a doctor." "I'm the chief of this department," Dr. Ellison said. "I've been for 2 years. I watched it happen in Chloe's eyes. Confusion, disbelief, fear, then calculation. Even with morphine on board, she was already looking for an angle. "Maya, listen," she whispered. "I can explain. You don't need to explain anything to me," Dr. Ellison said. Then she nodded toward the glass door, where her parents stood in the hallway, wrecked, eyes red. "You need to explain it to them." I stepped out to chart, and that's when I heard it start. Chloe began crying. Big, heaving sobs that yanked at her stitches and made the monitor spike. "Mom, Dad, you have to believe me," she said. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was scared for her." Her father's voice was barely controlled. "Chloe, Maya is a surgeon. She is the chief of trauma surgery at this hospital." "I didn't know that," Chloe said. Fast. Too fast. "She's exaggerating. You know how she—" And then her mother, flat and hollow, said, "Is it true she sent letters?" Chloe tried to pivot. Ruth tried to cause drama. Ruth lies. Maya lies. But the father cut in, voice cracking like a beam snapping in a house. 2 years ago, your Aunt Marlene called and told us Maya was in residency. You told us Marlene was lying." Silence. Then the mother did something I didn't expect. She screamed. Not a neat sob. Not a quiet weep. A scream that came from the place where regret lives. "What is the full story, Chloe?" At 9:45 a.m., the doors opened and Aunt Marlene walked in. I recognized her the moment I saw her because she didn't move like a visitor. She moved like someone who has been waiting 5 years to deliver a truth. She didn't sit, didn't hug, didn't soften. She stood in the center of the room and said, "I've been waiting 5 years to have this conversation, and I'm not waiting 1 more minute." Then she pulled out her phone, a folder labeled Maya Proof, screenshots of emails, a PDF of a leave of absence from Oregon Health and Science University, signed by the dean, stamped, re-enrollment confirmation, a photo of residency graduation, Maya in cap and gown, Marlene beside her, the only family member in the frame. She held the phone out. The mother took it with hands that couldn't stop shaking. "And here," Marlene said, swiping. "This is a text Chloe sent me 4 years ago." She read it aloud. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about Maya's residency. It'll just confuse them. They're finally at peace." The room went still. Chloe stared at the ceiling like the ceiling could save her. Her jaw set. But the calculation vanished. What replaced it was something I had never seen in a patient's eyes unless they'd run out of options. Exposure. Marlene looked straight at Chloe. "You told me to keep quiet for the family's sake. But this family hasn't had peace. It's had a 5-year blackout." Then she turned to the parents. "And you too. You let this happen. Not because you didn't love Maya, but because loving Chloe was easier." Nobody argued, because there was nothing left to argue with. The mother sat in the chair beside the bed, but she wasn't looking at Chloe anymore. She was reading Maya's emails one by one. Her lips moved silently as she read, and then she found the last one, the one sent the night before residency graduation. The one that said, in plain words, that Maya was still their daughter. The mother folded forward, not crying in a pretty way, in an emptied-out way, like a person meeting the full weight of a mistake they can't reverse. The father stood at the window, back to the room, shoulders shaking. Marlene later told me it was the first time she had ever seen her brother cry in 62 years. Not once, not at their mother's funeral, not when business nearly collapsed, not ever. He cried now, facing a parking lot, while the monitor beeped behind him. Dr. Ellison came back that afternoon at the end of her shift. 22 hours since the pager woke her up. Her parents were still there. Where else would they go? Back to a house where they'd pretended they only had one daughter? The mother stood up the second she saw her. Maya, baby, I'm so sorry. Dr. Ellison lifted a hand, gentle but firm. I hear you, she said, and I believe you're sorry. But sorry is a word. It's a starting place, not a finish line. Her father swallowed. We want to make this right. Dr. Ellison nodded once, like she'd already decided what right could mean. Then you need to understand something, she said. I'm not the girl you sent away. I'm not the girl who begged you to listen from 3,000 miles away. She paused. I built a life without you, and if you want to be part of it now, it will be on my terms. Not Chloe's, not yours, mine. Her father opened his mouth, that old reflex to declare a rule. Then he closed it, and nodded. Small, devastated, real. Dr. Ellison looked at Chloe on the bed. When you're recovered, she said, you and I will have a conversation. A real one. But not today. Today you're my patient. I don't mix the two. Then she left. Spine straight. Measured steps. No performance. Just boundaries. Spoken like a law of physics. 2 weeks later, Chloe was discharged. Her incision healed faster than her identity. Dr. Ellison chose the location for their first real conversation, a coffee shop in Middletown, neutral ground. Her husband, Evan Parker, came with her and sat near the window with a file, pretending not to listen. Chloe walked in looking smaller than she remembered, hollowed out, confidence gone. She sat down, wrapped her hands around a cup she didn't drink. Dr. Ellison didn't do preamble. I'm not going to yell, she said. I'm not going to list every lie. You know what you did. She leaned in slightly. I want to know why. Silence. Long enough for the barista to call a name. Long enough for sugar packets to feel loud. Then Chloe said it. Because you were going to be everything I wasn't, she whispered. And I couldn't handle it. Dr. Ellison let the sentence sit like a weight. That's honest, she said. First honest thing you've said to me in 10 years. Chloe's eyes filled, and these tears looked different, less theatrical, more human. I'm sorry, Chloe said. I know you are, Dr. Ellison replied. But sorry doesn't give me back 5 years. Sorry doesn't put Dad at my wedding. Sorry doesn't unsend the box Mom shipped back like I was dead. Chloe stared at the table, then said something that made my skin prickle when I heard it later. I also called your medical school twice, Chloe admitted. I tried to get them to revoke your leave. I told them you fabricated caregiver documents. When Dr. Ellison told me that part, she didn't say it like a victim. She said it like a surgeon describing a cut. Clean. Exact. He didn't protect me, she told Chloe in that coffee shop. He believed the truth. That's not the same thing. Then she gave conditions. Not revenge. Structure. You will tell the truth, Dr. Ellison said. The full truth. To every family member you lied to. Every aunt, every uncle, every cousin who thinks I was in rehab or homeless. Chloe nodded, small. And you'll do it in writing, Dr. Ellison continued. An email to the family group. All of them. Aunt Marlene confirms delivery. Another nod. And Mom and Dad, Dr. Ellison said. They go to family counseling. Not for me. For themselves. Chloe didn't argue, because there was nothing left to win. A week later, Dr. Ellison met her parents at their kitchen table in Hartford. the same table where they'd once read her acceptance letter. The mother kept her hands folded like she didn't trust them not to break something. The father looked older than his age. Dr. Ellison didn't ask for gifts. She asked for understanding. You need to understand why you believed a lie about your own daughter, and never once picked up the phone to check. The father's jaw tightened. "We don't do that in this family," he said. And Dr. Ellison, still calm, said, "That's exactly why we're here." The mother touched his arm. "Greg, please." He looked at her, looked at Maya, and something behind his eyes cracked. Not open, not healed, but cracked. "Fine," he said. 1 month later, the Physician of the Year Gala. 200 people in a ballroom at the Hartford Marquis Hotel. Name tags, clinking glasses, a string quartet nobody listened to. Dr. Ellison wore a simple black dress. Evan looked like he'd been born in a suit. Her mentor, Dr. Simona Simhart, sat beside him with arms crossed and that faint smile that says, "I built this moment without telling you I built it." When they called Dr. Ellison's name, the room stood. She walked to the stage and kept it simple. 5 years ago, she said, I almost quit. Not because I couldn't do the work, but because I lost the people I thought I needed. She paused. What I learned is, the people you need aren't always the ones you're born to. Sometimes, they're the ones who choose you. She looked at Sim, at Evan, at her team. Then, her eyes moved to the back row. 2 seats her Aunt Marlene had quietly arranged. Her parents sat there, hands in their laps, looking up at the stage like grief and pride were fighting in the same face. And sometimes, Dr. Ellison said, the ones you're born to find their way back late. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father stood. Applause filled the room. After the gala, her father found Evan near the coat check. He stood in front of him for a long moment like he didn't know what posture a man wears when he's ashamed. I owe you an apology, he said. I should have been the one. Evan extended his hand. With all due respect, sir, he said. You should have been a lot of things, but we're here now. They shook hands. Her father's eyes were red. He didn't let go right away. Chloe sent the email on a Wednesday night. Aunt Marlene confirmed delivery to all 47 addresses. It was 3 paragraphs. No poetry, no excuses, just facts. She lied. She fabricated evidence. She maintained the deception for 5 years. She prevented their parents from learning the truth. She ended with one sentence that hit like a door slamming. Maya never abandoned this family. I made sure they believed she did. That is entirely on me. The responses came in waves. Some loud, some quiet. Some people didn't respond at all, and that silence was its own verdict. No one organized a boycott. No one screamed. They just stopped believing Chloe. And for someone who built her whole identity on being believed, that was punishment enough. Her parents started counseling in February with a therapist in West Hartford. The mother took to it fast, because she'd been carrying passivity like a stone. The father struggled. He sat in the chair. He answered in few words. And the therapist named something that stuck. Chloe provided the lie, but the father's pride cemented it into place. His refusal to revisit a decision once made was the load-bearing wall of the disaster. 3 weeks into counseling, the mother mailed Dr. Ellison a handwritten letter. I failed you, she wrote. Not just when I believed Chloe, but every time I chose peace over fairness. Dr. Ellison read it at her kitchen table while Atlas, her golden retriever, slept on her feet and Evan pretended not to listen. Then she placed that letter in a drawer. In that drawer were other things. A card from a friend who once said, "Finish what you started." Returned letters. A wedding invitation that came back unopened. Same drawer, different side. Progress isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just rearranging what you carry. Now I need to tell you the part you haven't heard yet. The open loop I promised. The screenshot in my pocket. Because you might be thinking, okay, truth came out, family cried, therapy started, gala happened. Nice arc. But here's what made it different for me. As a nurse who has watched 1,000 families fall apart and pretend they didn't, 2 years before Chloe's crash, Someone called our hospital HR using a fake name. They asked about Dr. Ellison's employment status. They asked if she'd ever been disciplined, if her credentials were legitimate. That kind of call doesn't happen by accident. It's phishing. It's hunting. Evan traced it with a colleague. The IP came back to Hartford. When Dr. Ellison told me that, she said one sentence that still chills me. She wasn't just lying about me, she said. She was trying to build proof I didn't deserve to exist. And that morning, after the waiting room confrontation, when I walked past the nurse's station, I saw Aunt Marlene standing there with her phone open. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She looked tired, like someone who'd been holding a match away from gasoline for years. I asked her quietly, "Do you need anything?" She looked at me and said, "I need someone outside the family to remember the truth, in case they try to rewrite it again." That's when she showed me the text, the one she later read in the ICU. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about Maya's residency. It'll just confuse them. They're finally at peace." I didn't know what would happen next. I just knew. The truth needed an extra witness, so I took a screenshot, and I kept it. Not as a weapon, as architecture, because when you've watched lies rebuild themselves, you learn that feelings fade, but receipts don't. A few weeks after all of it, Dr. Ellison told me something in the hallway outside OR4. She said, "I didn't get revenge. I waited." She adjusted her badge like she was grounding herself. "I became someone who didn't need it," she said. And then she said the line that feels like the whole story in one breath. That turned out to be the most devastating response of all. Not a scheme, not a plan, just a life lived fully, on her own terms. Sunday morning, first week of February, light snow outside her kitchen window. The kind that doesn't stick, but makes everything look softly forgiven. Dr. Ellison was making French toast. Evan was grinding coffee beans, singing off-key to the radio. Atlas was stationed under the table, loyal to the possibility of crumbs. The doorbell rang. She opened the door and saw her parents standing on the porch in winter coats. Her father held a bottle of orange juice like he didn't know what to do with his hands. Her mother held a tin of homemade cookies, the kind she used to make for every school event, for Chloe, and none for Maya. "Hi," her mother said, nervous, hopeful, and Dr. Ellison took one breath. Not because it was easy, because it was chosen. "Come in," she said. "Coffee's almost ready." Her father stepped inside and looked around the kitchen like he was cataloging a life he almost never knew existed. He cleared his throat. "Can I help with anything?" Dr. Ellison looked at him. 62 years old, standing in his daughter's kitchen for the first time, asking permission to be useful. "You can set the table," she said. "Dad," he nodded, went to the cabinet she pointed to, took out plates, counted them, and paused. He looked up, quiet, like he was afraid of getting the number wrong. "4?" he asked. "4," she said. He set them down one by one, carefully, like they might break if he wasn't gentle. Evan handed him coffee. Her mother hugged Maya at the stove. Not a movie hug, a quiet one, forehead against her shoulder. No words. Holding on. Atlas thumped his tail. Snow fell outside. French toast sizzled. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the childhood she deserved. It wasn't the reconciliation movies sell, but it was real. And real was more than she'd had for a very long time. If you're listening and you see yourself in this, if you've been the one who was silenced, erased, misunderstood, hear me. The truth doesn't expire. It doesn't matter if it takes 5 days or 5 years. The truth has a patient way of showing up exactly when it's needed most. You can't rush it, but you can't outrun it either. And here's the part people get wrong. They think healing means opening the door wide. Sometimes healing means building the door yourself, putting in the hinges, choosing the lock, deciding who gets a key. Because apologies without change are just sound, and boundaries aren't punishment. They're structure. So if you're sitting there waiting for your family to finally see you, stop waiting. See yourself first. Build the life you deserve with the people who show up. And if the ones who left finally turn around, let them find a door you control. You decide when it opens. You decide how wide. You decide who walks through. That's not revenge. That's architecture. My name is Linda Carver. I work night shift trauma, and I watched a woman save the sister who tried to erase her, then go home and set 4 plates like it was simply the next right thing. 4 plates. It's a start. And sometimes, a start is the bravest part.